Let's
Man, it
do it,
sounds
man.
sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah, and did you have a good time at Dusty Lizard? I like your
Oh
wedding.
man, had a blast. Oh, so cool. But yeah, I'll tell you a little story about
Okay,
that.
great.
Hello, all you motorcycle riding, dusty trail chasing, tent dwelling nomadic adventurers. Welcome to Two Wheels and a Tent Adventure Calls podcast. And today we got a very, very special guest, Pete from Mosko Moto, who is one of my heroes and a friend. Keep meeting him in strange places. Welcome, Pete.
Thanks, Cody. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me back again. And hi to everybody who's listening.
So we were talking a little bit before, and it sounds like you're going to be a pretty busy camper.
Coming up pretty soon. Yeah, well, I'll be on the move. Yeah, the idea is this will be, I've been in the Northwest for, oh boy, for a long time now. This will be the first winter that I kind of, there's not a lot of riding up here in the winter. And so usually I end up trying to fill my winters with snow sports and stuff like that. But this winter, I'm going to relocate down to the kind of US Southwest for most of the winter. So I'm going to live in my trailer. I got some bikes and I'm taking down there 3 bikes with me, and I'll be just kind of working on Moscow videos and riding and Starlink and just trying to do that kind of thing for the winter. I do plenty of that year round, but this is just a unique to kind of dedicate the entire winter to it. But there'll be a few international trips squeezed in there as well. So I'll be probably kind of moving around between Baja and Eastern California, Arizona, Southern Nevada, and then over the holidays, probably in the Philippines riding, or maybe in Southeast Asia. I haven't decided yet. And then I'll just go over, get a little bike and explore. And then in February, I'm going to pick up a little bike in Nairobi in Kenya and go explore northern Kenya, where I haven't been into the north part of Kenya before. So pretty
That
excited for that.
sounds that sounds amazing. But I got to ask, like you said, haven't decided yet. I might just pop into I don't know Kenya or how, how do you do that?
Well, I've done it a lot of these trips now where I kind of just fly over to countries in the developing world, and without really any plans. I mean, I do obviously I try to pick countries that are reasonably stable, and just pick up an inexpensive motorcycle like a Chinese or Indian made dual sport and go exploring on it. I've been
Now
doing
you
that
have
for a decade. I've
you
done a
have a
lot.
word for that, right? You have a term for that.
Rat packing. Yeah, we call it
Yes,
rat packing. Yeah,
I
exactly.
love it.
Brat packing. Yeah, that's funny. You remember that. And I love doing that because it you really have to do no planning. If it's a country that needs visas, you got to get your visa, and you obviously got to have your passport. You got to book your flight, and I usually will book a hotel reservation for the first night or the first 2 nights in the city. I didn't
Just to
used to do
settle
that. I
in.
used to try to always arrive without a hotel reservation because then that was like that was half the fun, was getting off a plane at 11 o'clock at night in some country where you don't speak the language and trying to figure out where you're going to sleep. And I kind of then a couple years ago, after the novelty of that wore off, I sort of just said, all right, screw it. I'll book something for the first couple nights. So especially in Nairobi, I'll get a room for a couple of nights, and you kind of bring over the cash you need to buy the bike, which is usually a couple grand. And then because that's easier, that just eliminates one step of how to get your hands on that kind of money when you arrive in the country. So if you show up with US dollars, like crisp new $100 bills, those usually work pretty much everywhere. And then you just wake up in the morning and start looking for a motorcycle.
Man,
And
that sounds so cool.
yeah, it's neat. Finding the bike is part of it, and then figuring out how to get it like registered and get the right paperwork. It's usually much easier than you think, but still, it's a little bit overwhelming when you like just landed the night before.
I was going to
And
say, like, you're a certain kind of person because that's giving people anxiety right now. I can tell.
it's easier than
But
you think. I mean, their motorcycles are a brand new motorcycle. At one of these motorcycles, brand new from a dealer, is going to cost you anywhere between like maybe $1,500 and like $3,500 on the outside. And hopefully you can find it for like 1,500 to like 2,200 or something like that. And we're talking about like 150 to 250 cc dual sport that's like a Chinese or Indian copy of a old Honda, basically.
and you
And
have a reason why you do local, if I remember.
yeah, I do local bikes because when you get out in the countryside, if you have a month to travel and you're on a foreign bike and it has a problem and you lose a couple of days here and a couple of days there, it ends up being because the bike breaks down or needs a part. Like it's really hard to source those parts and it's very stressful. You're in like some little town in Africa and Like nobody wants to work on the bike. Nobody wants to touch it. They're afraid of it. They don't understand it. You get the only parts available are in the main city, and the only mechanics that might work on them are in the main city. And I've just had that interfere with trips before. And if you're on the little Chinese bikes or Indian bikes, then you just like literally, I mean, there's not a single, you could put a whole new engine in the thing in an hour. It's like there's
Wow.
nothing is going wrong with that bike that results in you being stuck for 2 days. You know,
Simplicity is good then when you're in the middle of nowhere. No
totally. And
kidding.
parts availability, a lot of the parts for these bikes are interchangeable between the different models and the different brands. So they're all kind of based on old Honda parts. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was with my buddy and where we were in like northern Togo, or I think we were in like Togo or Ghana or something like that. And his like little valve fucking rocker, like the bearing seized
Uh-huh.
up in this little tiny village, and we're like, oh, we're so effed. Like we're gonna be stuck here. Yeah, that's it. And like, I mean, I'm not even shitting you. We like towed into this little town. We pull up to the mechanic, rips the engine apart, pulls out the thing. Oh, here's the problem. Can't move the rocker. The bearing's frozen. And we're like, where are we going to do that? And he's like, okay, come with me. My buddy jumps on his bike. They come back in half an hour and they have a valve rocker. And he's like, you're not going to believe it. We went into this little hut and we walked back through aisles of parts, and there's a whole stack of boxes of these valve rockers. And the guy grabs
Oh.
it. I mean, this is like tiny town, you know?
I went into the hut and grabbed the part and
They grabbed it. He said they had a stack of the boxes, like this. And he, amongst other parts, of these,
we've
just this
been waiting for you, he says. We've been
yeah,
waiting for you.
all these little bikes, all the locals are riding, they all use the same valve rocker. And so he brings it, puts it on the thing. Barely have time to have lunch and have a beer or whatever. We get back on the road. And then a little while later in that trip, and this is actually rare to have multiple problems with one of these bikes, but we had his clutch plates went out right on the border, and that turned into actually a crazy story. But we got stranded in this town overnight, and in the morning we had new clutch plates, and same exact situation, little village. And we got across the Togo border into Ghana, and his clutch plates were burned. And I'm stalling because we actually, a lot happened in that night. There was like a huge tribal conflict that happened in the town overnight. It was one of the most dramatic nights.
Do tell, do tell.
But in the morning, well, the upshot of it is in the morning we had new clutch plates. Yeah, we got stuck in this little town at the border, and just on that night, this is so rare, but there was a curfew in the town, and we were like, why is there a curfew? That's so weird. It's this little border town in northern Ghana, and because Ghana is super chill.
Mhm.
And they were like, yeah, you got to be in your room by 8 o'clock or whatever. And we're like, okay. And there's no people, there's no other tourists there. The room is like an old military barracks. There's nobody staying there. And we go sleep in this. We go into this place. We're like, okay, we get it. We got to be in by 8, whatever. And they're really like, you got to be there. Everybody's saying you got to be in there. So we get in there, barely managed to get our hands on like a chicken and something to drink. And we get into this place, and we're sitting down eating. And at like 8:05, the first gunshot starts. And like by like 9 o'clock, there's gunshots. You can hear gunshots
Oh,
all over. And then at some point, so we're like, what the fuck is going on?
yeah.
And this wasn't normal. So they've had this curfew. There's been this like conflict in this town apparently for a while. But this night there was an actual attack. And so like the one night that we stayed in this town, and so the town was split between, I guess, two leaders, and they're brothers, and the one brother decided to attack the other brother, and we happened to be in the attacked brothers part of town. And so at about like 11, or I don't remember what time it was, but late at night, we noticed a fire, and we're like, oh shit. And we go out and we see they're lighting, these people running through the village, lighting all these, there are all these like mud huts with grass roofs, and they're going around torching the huts. So we're like
Oh
watching,
my. Yeah.
we're like over this fence, like climbing up on this like concrete wall and watching them light these huts on fire. And and there's huts built right up to this little structure that we're staying in, but the structure we're in is concrete. And so they're burning right up to the wall, and the gunfire is like right on the street outside. People are shooting at each other. And so this goes on all night until like after the sun came up the next morning. I mean, we didn't hardly slept. I mean, it was fucking crazy. And meanwhile, the bike, we only have one bike. We packed our little go bags, and we're like ready to like take off and go like
You're
run
gonna
whatever.
bug out.
Yeah, bug out. Like leave the bikes, fuck it. We'll just go hide in the bushes till the sun comes up. And like And so we go the next morning, and then in the morning, we waited until we saw like the ladies coming out and going to the well and stuff to get water, and we're like, okay, life's resuming. All the huts are just like these little smoldering structures. And we come out and walk down to the mechanic where we left the bike the night before, because that's why we're there. The clutch plates burned out. It was really sad. I mean, people were crying, standing in their houses crying. Like it was really,
Man,
really dramatic. And we went down to the mechanic, and the mechanic obviously hadn't made much progress on the bike overnight, but
he
but
was busy fighting off the brother.
something. But he understood our urgency for getting out of town, and by then the military had come into town, and there were SWAT teams, and yeah, there's a lot of like heavy weaponry and soldiers and stuff in town, like that from the government that had been sent in to respond to it. And things were kind of more tranquilo. And we got down there, and that morning he fixed the clutch plates, and I don't know, mid morning we were back on the road.
That is
That was one of
crazy.
the weirdest things that's ever happened to me traveling internationally. So that's not normal.
Okay, so nobody can live up to Pete's adventure. Okay, so don't even try. That's. I mean, it's awesome, but crazy, sad.
And just really bad luck that we were there that night. I mean, it's just, I look back, I'm like, it's almost unbelievable. That stuff just doesn't. It's just not common, you know.
So what does that do? I mean, I've heard because I've traveled locally, in the United States. I've went to Canada. That's my extent of travel, and I've seen pictures of you all over in small towns, countries, huts, and I've heard that changes you as a person. So, like seeing those people go through that, did that? I mean, that's got to affect you, does it?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things there. There's like, what's the effect of, how does travel affect us? And then, that specific situation of seeing that, like, people, I mean, that's like one little tiny night in one little tiny town. And you think about what's happening in Israel and Gaza and Ukraine and places like that. I mean, this is like small potatoes compared to that, and we're just passing through. We're just tourists.
Yeah, you're just there the one night.
Yeah. But I do I haven't been exposed to a lot of war. Like most of us in this country, many of us in this country, haven't been. And even when we've been in wars, the people that fight our wars are dedicated soldiers. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
for many of them, that's their career, at least at that stage. And they experience all of that trauma for us.
yeah. My hats off and bleeds for them, but
Yeah,
that's
same. Exactly. And here it's like you experience just a little tiny taste of it for a couple hours, and it's so sobering, you know?
yeah.
And then you think that's you
And
know,
that's their daily life. So,
that's their daily
in the
life.
human aspect, I'm sure you feel for those people. On the other hand, you probably wanted to get the heck out of there as quick as you could.
Yeah, we wanted to get the fuck out of there, and so did the army. Wanted us the fuck out of there too, because it was really weird. There were a couple foreigners there, and we did have some interactions with the military, and they were like, "You guys need to get the fuck out of here." They're probably worried we were reporters, or something
Well,
like that.
you keep running into military when you go these places. I remember you told me the story about when you broke your leg.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
military pick you up?
they did at that time, yeah, and it's kind of saved my ass in that situation. But I think the military in a lot of developing countries is just more. There's more of a presence, because a lot of times these are countries that, while they're stable now, instability is not that far back in their history. When you look at a lot of the countries, especially the places that I tend to target for these trips, they usually have some history of instability, and so the military is more of a presence, but that's not. It doesn't have the same meaning it does if you had military checkpoints here in the U.S. And military checkpoints are just kind of part of life there. You know what
Man,
I'm
that's
saying?
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're so
If we were,
fortunate.
yeah, if we were stopping at sandbags and barbed wire and guys with machine guns asking for ID, every 50 miles here in the U.S., that would be like, that's such a foreign concept to us. But in there, it's a sign of security and safety, and it's just totally normal. You know,
Wow.
with it, every little town, the police would check you when you come in and check you when you go out, or that there'd be random military checkpoints, and just asking, who are you, where are you going, what are you doing. It's usually occasionally a small bribe.
I was going to say, have you ever had to grease some palms to get through?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's like, it's so friendly. It's not what people think. It's not people pushing you around and being intimidating. I mean, those things happen if you screw up, but like for the most part, in those random checkpoints, it's more like, hey, it's hot out here, could you buy us a Coke? It's that kind of question. But it's done with laughter and smiles, and and the money is small. I mean, they don't make a lot of money, those soldiers.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's cool. So, last time we had you on, you mentioned something that's my favorite clip, actually, about adventure,
yeah.
and I'm kind of titling this "What is Adventure?" But you have something like me that seems like you don't always have a plan, and adventure doesn't always go to plan. So, tell me a little bit about that and how you in your life came to. Because I mean, I look at you, I say you're kind of a nomad. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a great thing to me, but not everybody is okay with just having a different place to lay their head every night. So if you would just, how did you become comfortable with that? Or
I mean,
can be the short version.
yeah. Well, I think I was drawn to it pretty young. I left home, packed up, and left home. He got in a little bit of trouble as a kid, and got ended up leaving home when I was pretty young for a while. I came back later, but dropping out of high school and stuff like that, and riding freight trains. And I was at that time I was reading like Jack Kerouac books. Like I was super intrigued. I was intrigued with the romance of it. And it seemed just got my heart pumping. And that plus the situation that I was trying to kind of escape when I left were, but yeah, I had a draw and I had something I was leaving and something I was going towards. And then it was quite novel. And now it's like just my life. Like it's just so ingrained in my life. And it's funny, I look back at that couple of years of my life back then when I was kind of 15 to 17. And then I look at my career as an adult and I realize like even when I was working in like sort of mundane jobs, like when I ran a company for 10 years, and I traveled all over the country. And when I first got involved with the company, we were doing like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shows a year or something like that. And like
Mhm.
somehow under my guidance, we ended up doing like, I don't know, 40 shows a year. You know what I mean? I'm traveling all over the country for all these shows. And I'm like, was I just trying to recreate this nomadic existence in that job? And then look, I start Moscow, and
Yeah.
Moscow does more shows than any. We do like 45 shows a year. I'm doing it again. And it's like that road life. And like Dusty Lizards and meetups and then in between those things I'm squeezing in motorcycle trips and going to other countries. So it stopped being unusual and just become my life. And yeah, at some point you know what I'm saying, early in life you
Yeah.
get drawn to things and then suddenly something happens, the whole time passes, and then suddenly those things define you in a way
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you
And
realize like, oh, this is just me. you know this
like
is,
those are usually challenging. I remember I had similar. I was quote unquote. I'm obsessed with tents because I was kicked out of my house many, 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 many times. So it's
yeah.
kind of funny, but and going through that, it seems like a negative thing to me at the time and to the parents. Like, "Oh, this kid, he's just freaking out, sleeping under cars or whatever." But like you're saying, as you go through life, you kind of find that the things you went through teach you what you need to know now and help you for your calling, whatever that is. Because I mean, not just anybody can do what you do. So you were kind of training yourself without knowing it, right? For your
Yeah,
future self.
for sure. And I think there's it's funny when I have conversations with people who are like, oh, I watch your Instagram or whatever, or like it seems like kind of dreamy and stuff. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, well, yeah, but you know what it's like packing, unpacking, and just like sleeping in rest areas and trucks out. Like it's not, the romance is there, but it's like 5% of it. You know what I mean? But of course, that's the only
Mhm.
part you ever post about. Oops, sorry, that's my dog barking in the
Hi,
background.
buddy.
Please,
Hi, bud.
please let her out there. I don't know if I can shut her up. She may go. She's going to go until the visitor leaves.
That's what dogs do. They let you
Yeah,
know somebody's around. So
yeah. So if and I think to myself sometimes, like I'll talk to somebody who's got a pretty settled life, like I'm sure they're married and have a couple kids and good job and stuff like that, and I'm like, this life would be a struggle for you, in the
yeah,
same way that your life would be a real struggle for me. Like I would, if I tried to live that, you would see all sorts of bad behavior creeping up. you know,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
because
Totally.
I'm not programmed that way, I'm programmed this way. Now, I could have much earlier in life maybe taken a different fork, and ended up somewhere different. But but this is where I am now, and at 49, barring
Yeah.
some debilitating injury, it's not changing. You know.
I love it. I love that you're chasing the dream, and you're okay with a little uncomfortableness. I guess that's what I feel like. A lot of people are just so afraid to get uncomfortable. I mean, it's uncomfortable. Yeah. It's hard for me to just have you on the podcast because for so long I've looked up to you and followed you, and I love the gear and stuff. And um, but at the end of the day, once we get by a campfire on the bikes, we're just kind of kindred souls.
For
Um,
sure,
but
dude.
but to people watching, it's a little rare to have the drive and the courage to go outside your comfort zone, and that's where good things happen, right?
Oh man, I believe that 100%. I sometimes, I mean, everybody's got their different version of what constitutes like a life fully lived, and I think for some folks that's they're measured in their family and their children, and for some it's like their careers, and for some maybe it's religious or spiritual, and I think for some it's pushing those bookends of comfort as far out as they possibly can, and accumulating, as many kind of radically divergent experiences as they can. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that, I don't know if one mission in life is any more better than another. I mean, am I just like, sometimes I wonder, is it, you look at people that collect toys and they just get their
Hmm.
cars and all this, whatever houses or clothes or whatever they're into. I don't know, status, nightclubs, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and is what I do any better than that? I mean, of course, for me it is, but like, doesn't matter. I mean, you can't take any of it when you die, the possessions or the experiences. Maybe at the end of the day,
I hope
what
we take this experiences. I hope. I don't know,
I hope.
but
I mean, I'm, but anyway, that's just something I think about sometimes.
yeah.
I try not to get pejorative about it. Just this works for me.
No, and that's awesome. And I kind of like to hear that and just to share that with people because like I have a friend that owns a $60 million a year business. Really good buddy. He's a writer also. And he has some toys and stuff, but I tell him like your life terrifies me. Like you are responsible for, you know, whatever 500 people's paychecks, and you have to be at this meeting at that time, and yeah, you've got the nicest bikes and stuff, and he's a down to earth guy, but like that terrifies me. And he's kind of like, well, the people I work with that are successful, that like they envy you watching your videos, you're just out there doing this. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm on $2 in my pocket, but I'm doing it. And they're like, yeah. So I think it's the grass is greener and
And that's
type
what I
of
mean. They're
thing,
looking at you like, and thinking, I wish I could do that. And they couldn't do what you do any more than you could do what they do. You look at them and think, that looks horrifying. And they're looking at, you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
there might be some things you envy about them, like their income or a toy they just bought or a house or their great relationship or whatever the thing is. And but then deep down inside the price of that is the rest of this, and that's why you're not doing it. And it's the same with you. They look at the highlights and think, oh, I'd like to go on those trips or do whatever, and travel or live a little bit more free or with less attachments, and then but they couldn't do that any more than you could do what they do.
Yeah, and it's crazy to know that because living kind of nomadic and not, I guess, kind of an alternative way that, I mean, I have a family and stuff, but I still, I'm into travel and motorcycle camping as much as I can be. Take the wife and stuff, but
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Well, everybody's just got their own path, man.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, but so I felt over the years kind of like I was inferior or doing something wrong, but as I learn and talk with these people, like part of my life, they envy and vice versa. So you just
yeah.
got to be okay with yourself and learn how to change a damn tire because adventure happens.
Yeah. And we're actually probably more versatile than we even realize, like, who knows what the future brings. You get in a motorcycle crash and can't ride anymore, and boom, 5 years later you're living this completely other life that you never could have imagined for yourself.
Yeah.
so we are surprisingly like resilient and adaptable.
Yeah, I think myself that the worst part you could do as life is not try something.
Yeah.
You know, like to me, that's I don't know. I don't want to use sin, but like if you're watching adventure videos all the time and you never have gone on an adventure and blah blah blah, like I see dying on the deathbed and not have tried it, like the
Yeah.
worst thing because then it's gone, right? So
Yeah, for sure. Time is such a precious resource. You know, it's crazy getting older, man. Watching time go by, it trips
it is.
me sometimes. Sometimes I feel
You're
like
still a young pup. How old are you?
I'm 49, but
Me
that's
too.
great. I mean, it's all relative. You know, we're all looking up and down the ladder and getting old together by the people around us. But then occasionally I sort of wake up and I look around. I'm like, oh my god, I remember when my dad was this age. You know, and
Yeah,
like he was kind of old to me then. You know, and like now I'm that to someone else.
yeah. So
Shit,
as you get older, ages well, old becomes older, right?
you're constantly redefining it. Yeah.
Speaking of being that age of people, I'll share with you and the listeners. This will be pretty much the first time I've shared it, but I'm going to be a grandpa.
Whoa! Congratulations. That's huge.
You met Squatch, my son-in-law, out there
Yeah.
at the Dusty Lizard. But yeah,
Yeah, man. Congratulations. That's huge.
thank you. Yeah, blowing my mind, but I'll have to teach him how to brat pack. Hopefully.
Yeah. We're sending my way. Yeah. Who knows, man? I'll be rat packing grandpa at that point. Maybe I already am. Shit.
Hey, yeah, you never know. It's cool. Yeah. So I wanted to also apologize at the last Dusty Lizard. I came up to you in the morning and was trying to talk, but my son-in-law we'd got some Metallica whiskey,
Yeah.
and I thought it would last all 3 nights. But he's young, and I had to prove that I could keep up with him. So you were talking to me, and I was like, and you're like, "I'll
Funny.
talk to you later, dude."
That's hilarious. Well, I was, I got COVID after that. I got
Yeah,
COVID after the event. Yeah. So I was already feeling a little off there, but I thought it was food sickness. And then because I was had some symptoms of that. And then it turned out to be COVID of all things.
it wasn't the food truck. You were safe.
Yeah. I thought it was weird that I was the only one who was sick, and then somehow it turned out to be COVID. It's very strange.
Yeah, and like the adventure that derailed your plans, right? Sent you back home
Yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah. Home grounded. We were headed to Moab to ride, and we kind of got all set up and drove south to Moab and woke up in the morning with COVID and ended up turning around and beelining all the way back to home just because last time I had COVID, the first time pre-vaccine, I got it and I
Hmm.
was real sick and I was away from home. And so that was tough. And so I had some PTSD from that. I just wanted to get
Just
back
wanted
to,
to get back to your bed and your toilet and your
you don't know what kind of ride you're in for. This time it was quite mild. And of course I figured it would be mild, but I wasn't willing to take the chance of being super sick far from home again.
yeah. Well, Utah is one of the like we change on a dime.
Yeah.
I've been in 90 degrees and then in hail and had to camp in 40-mile-an-hour winds with snow literally surrounding my tent halfway up.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy. So yeah,
Unfor-
probably a good choice. But
yeah.
Southern Utah, you should be able to come back and play in still.
Yeah. Yeah, I might be there. I'll probably on my drive down south, I'll probably swing through southern Utah and stop and ride a little bit. Might go back to Moab and have a redo. Moab area, Green River.
Nice. Green
Yeah.
River, that's a very windy area if you're on an adventure bike, by the way.
Yeah, I'll be riding trail bikes there, more. I love
Yeah,
riding dirt bikes too.
that's fun. So right now, what bikes are you currently riding?
I've got a KTM 890, KTM
Oh,
500, and then a KTM 300. So I'm on all KTMs. I don't have any relationship with KTM. I don't get
I love it.
discounts or anything like that.
I'm a KTM guy too, but
Yeah, I just
the
always seem.
890 is my unicorn.
Yeah, it's a great bike. What is that what you're riding to?
No, so I wanted an 890, and the wife liked the seat on the BMW GS
Uh,
better.
yeah,
So currently, I've got I've got the GS 800 and 701 and a 300 KTM
yeah,
two
cool.
stroke little
I'm
brat
gonna look that
machine.
up for trail riding. Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's what I'd like to follow you on because you get a little on the throttle.
I love riding trail bikes. I came into motorcycling from the travel side. Like for me, it flowed out of hitchhiking and riding freights and travel and backpacking, and then motorcycles were like this new tool for accomplishing something similar. And then, but I wasn't into dirt biking. I didn't grow up dirt biking. I grew up riding little
Mm,
BMX bikes. So maybe when I finally got on a dirt bike, something clicked. But
yeah.
I kind of followed my friends into it, and then now I love it. I love trail riding because I like to. I really like the sense of exploration. I love going places
Hmm.
I haven't been, or that are hard to get to, or that other people don't go to, or whatever. I like that challenge. And bikes are
Definitely.
just a great way of that's where motorcycles really shine.
Yeah.
And like I love that with adventure bikes, like when we're out and you see like the 4x4 and overlander guys and they're moving so slow, and you just like zip by and you realize like we can cover in a day what they cover in a weekend or a 3-day trip, and for me the experience of riding a bike is so much more fun than driving a four-wheeled vehicle.
It
um,
is. It's
there's no
you're more
disrespect.
in the moment, like you're feeling the wind, smelling the air.
Totally.
You're
And
part of it.
you got to be so focused just to stay upright,
Yeah.
and but there's something very exciting about that. You're just kind of always riding that fine line, and it does it and amazing how it keeps you centered. It's like
Yeah.
when hang out at home, I'm thinking about problems that are like 10 years away. I'm thinking about problems next month and next year.
Yeah.
And then like when you're riding a motorcycle off road,
Single
you're not thinking
track.
about problems that are more than 20 feet away. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Single track next to a cliff ledge. You're
Yeah,
you're totally focused on what you're doing.
totally. So it's like a kind of meditation like that. It makes you very present.
Totally. I call it the Zen, or I call it my church.
Yeah.
Like I need to recenter. If I've been off the bike too long, my wife will even tell me you need to go up in the mountain and just talk to your spirit gods, whatever you do up there. But
Yeah.
basically, it just shuts your mind off because you're focused on surviving, not
It's
not falling off the
incredibly
cliff.
effective at that. And I think one of the reasons why when you combine, it with overnighting, like with ADV, is that you then instead of coming back to your truck or back to your house and all your stuff, you then have also consolidated your life and your living down to a very small universe. And so and then you wake up the next day fully reset. You know what I mean? You didn't go back to a hotel and eat in a restaurant and pay with a credit card. Like you sort of like
Yeah.
cooked your dinner and with you got your little spork and your little pot and your kitchen is this big,
Yes, I
and
love
like
it. I
and I
love
think
that part. That blew my mind the first time.
that,
You can literally live off what you can carry on a motorcycle
yeah, and many people
for
are right
a
now.
long, long time, and
Yeah.
it's amazing.
And so then
Like you
you
said.
you get the centeredness of the riding during the day, the presentness that you get that we talked about, and then you also get that with your living situation, with your sleeping, with your kitchen and everything at night, because it's just all consolidated. And then you wake up and you repeat that cycle a couple of times. And it has an incredible kind of like on day 3 of a trip. And it's like, I sort of
Mhm.
wake up and my brain is clear, you know,
Yeah.
I
I
love that.
I totally agree, and that's what I chase. I think many of us chase, and I was talking to somebody, I think it was Bryce from the BDR, but he said they call that the bubble, the BDR bubble.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's what I've tried to do in my videos is, like, express how to get there or this point," because 3 days, 4 days in, it becomes the adventure is just that's your world, right? Like, where am I
That's
gonna
it.
sleep? Where am I riding to? Can I camp? Can I make a fire? Am I gonna eat? Am I gonna get rained on? Like, this other, the news that comes and bombards you or all these big, huge problems, it just simplifies down into your bike and where you're at, and it's
I think that's something that other people don't, until you experience going on an ADV trip, people don't get, they don't understand. Like, cause I feel like the road riders, they only see us when we're on the road. So they see us on like a stretch of pavement, and yeah, our bags are dirty and all this stuff, but we're in this funny looking clothing and we got all this shit on the bike and these weird looking bikes. And they're just like, who are these people? What
yeah,
are
they're
you?
aliens. We look like aliens.
Yeah, they don't get it at all. And then the dirt bikers, we go off road, and the dirt bikers see us, and they're like, "Those bikes are huge. What's all that shit on there?" And we're like, "What do you just
Yeah,
ride around gravel roads?" And they don't get it either. They don't know we're having this like totally other experience, like the one we just described, where we are have consolidated our lives and we're camping in these epic spots and we're still getting the kind of rush of riding, but we get it more on like double track but we're covering distance. Like they go do a little loop and come back to their truck and load up their bike and go home.
Yeah.
We get to the end of that loop, the farthest way point, and then we keep going past that. And then we stop and we make camp and we wake up and we keep going. And our loop covers states, it
Yeah.
crosses borders,
Well,
and
and how many times have you, I mean, I always set up at night. I know you shouldn't. I know you shouldn't. This is just my thing, set up in the dark. But how many times have you just woke up, each morning at a different place and you go open your tent or your hammock, whatever, and look out and you're somewhere just gorgeous. Like,
oh, it's amazing. I love that. I love that feeling. I love, when I'm making, I always make these little videos. Sometimes I post them on Instagram, but it's always like that first unzipping the tent in the morning where you
mhm,
sort of reach down
it's
and I'll
my
just take my
favorite.
phone and put it next to my finger as I grab the zipper and pull it back like that and open it up. Like, oh, look at what's outside. Is it snow or is it a view or is it a sunrise or is it a playa? You
That's my
know,
favorite shot.
I love that
I
shot.
love
And I don't
doing
get to
those.
see other people's either because you're just like, where's it going to be? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I love it. So I totally hear you. And I think more people should experience it, but you're right. We're kind of aliens to them.
It
But
doesn't, adventure riding doesn't have, it's very hard to express with like video and imagery what ADV riding is. And so I think that's one of the reasons why people don't understand it is that like when you see a dirt biker doing a backflip, you get it like right away, like, whoa, that's crazy.
right.
That's awesome. But like, we don't do backflips,
Not on
we,
purpose.
yeah, right. We do them, but it usually doesn't end well. Uh, for us, it's really hard to express the feeling of adventure riding in visually. That's what I found. Just even in my own, because I'm making a lot of videos now and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
I want to, there's the riding component of it, the camping component of it, the travel component of it, and it's very hard. It's not the most epic of anything. You know what I mean? Because it's that it combines all of these things. Like, yeah, you could get the most epic campsites in the world, you can't actually get to on a motorcycle. You know what I mean? They're going to be on some crazy point or some crazy, you get there
Right.
backpacking or climbing or something like that. Hanging off of those guys that sleep in the portaledges when they're climbing rock walls and shit. That's like, whoa. And then like with riding, it's like people do incredible things on motorcycles, stunts and backflips and jumps. And so, and then there's the travel component of it too. And a lot of the travel experience is off the bike. It's what happens when you get to the town and you go
Right.
through the crazy market or you meet the locals and they invite you to dinner or whatever. And so trying to gather all three of those together and present it in one video where someone's like, oh, I get it. It just is
Yeah,
like
that
really,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. But it,
Because
it, it is all of those things, you know?
it's what's the term I'm looking for? It's like individually each piece of it isn't like totally epic, but when you put them all together, the sum, like that's
Yeah.
the adventure. It's all of it.
And
So
you have to do it to feel, to experience it. Somebody has to invite you. And you go and then it's like you can see the light bulbs go off for people. They're like, oh shit, this
oh
is fucking
shit.
cool, man. you
And
know
so if you're thinking about it, most people listening probably ride and do this already. If you're thinking about it, go to a Dusty Lizard because Pete
yeah,
is
come
awesome. He'll say hi. He'll give you a drink by the campfire and just talk to you and probably answer some questions. But awesome people. And it's a great way to start because you meet a lot of like-minded people and there's multiple trails that you can do. Like if it's your first time, you can just do gravel roads, or if you're feeling saucy, you can fully loaded try and follow Pete. And I wouldn't suggest that, but it made a good
on.
video.
Yeah, well, if I'm fully loaded and you're fully loaded, fine. But if I'm on a trail
Yeah.
bike, fully loaded adventure bike might be a problem. The Yeah, for people that don't know, the Dusty Lizard is an event series that we started at my company, Mosko Moto. We've done them for about a year now, so we just are kind of finishing up our first full year of doing them, and it's still in its infancy. But they're these kind of community gathering riding events that we do, like campouts basically, and we kind of plop them down in interesting places or on interesting properties, and we work with the locals to get some routes figured out, some adventure bike routes, some trail bike routes, and we try to put them in places that we're also super curious about riding. So these aren't motorcycle shows or kind of shopping events. We have our tent there, our booth, and our products there if people want to
You
look at.
can't, I mean, you can order stuff, people, but you can't buy them cash right there. Okay.
Yeah,
I
we don't
tried.
bring.
but
Yeah,
it's
we don't.
not a sales event. It's literally a meet and greet and ride. It's
Yeah,
it's my
camp out.
highlight of the year right now. Not
Yeah,
even joking. I've been to
it's awesome.
two, and Pete knows I was almost to back surgery about 3 months ago, and I went to physical therapy and worked my tail off to avoid surgery just so I could go to Dusty Lizard and made it. So
Yeah, we've been having a blast with them. They're fun for us. They're fun for the people come in, and I'm just really curious. To me, that's one of the most exciting things we're doing out on the road right now. We'll probably do 4 of them this year, and there's 3 components to our road tour. One is the Dusty Lizard. One is we attend other people's events. So like Overland Expo or BMW or KTM or all the various kind of established events around the country that are we got to show up wherever adventure riders are gathering. We try to be there,
because you
and
make the best luggage and you have to get it into their hands
we have to
as
show
a
it to
favor
people.
to them, because shameless plug, but yeah, seriously.
That's nice of you to say. Yeah,
I've tried them all, and I'm Mosko for life. So yeah,
I
you get to
appreciate
meet people. You're doing events everywhere, but the Dusty Lizard is kind of your like company project, right? Like I feel like it's part of the soul of the company
Yeah, it
that
is, and
we
it
get to
we do.
experience.
I've been going to Burning Man, the Burning Man Festival down in Nevada for about 15 years now. And then we started doing an event that we call, 15 years. I got 2 mutant vehicles. Like we got a camp now. Like it's a big
So you were
production.
there in the mud.
Yeah, I was there in the mud this year. Yeah, that was great. What an experience. And then we also do an event that we've done for about 8 years. And again, none of this is Moscow. This is completely outside of Moscow. This has nothing to do with Moscow. Called the Unrally that we do in southeastern
Mhm.
Oregon, which is again just like Burning Man is kind of a nonprofit thing that we do outside of the company, and that is a real blast. If people are
So
interested in
it
that, can
looks
check
like
out.
it's in the desert area, right?
Yeah, it's in. These are both on playas, big wide open desert playas.
And fire does ensue.
Yeah, a lot of crazy shit goes down out there. This is not your typical gathering,
The
and
unrally.
the Unrally, yeah, the Unrally is such a blast, and then the idea was like, well, so we have this camp infrastructure. We have shade, we have couches, we have fire pits, like we have all this infrastructure. And these other events we do we're really strictly kind of non-commercial. Like we don't. There's no branding on them at all, no shopping, nothing like that. And then the idea was like, well, what if we could take some of that vibe? We have the camp infrastructure. Let's take some of that vibe out into the kind of ADV community and start doing some events, and let's have them move around to places that we ourselves want to ride and explore. So instead of this, what bugs me about the shopping experience at another event is that the communication. First of all, the communication is all about gear and shopping,
Mhm.
and the communication is all kind of unilateral. Like you walk into the booth, we talk to you, you leave the booth, and probably what we talk about in the interim is gear. You know,
Yes, it's like
and
going to buy a car. Is how
yeah,
I feel it at those quote unquote commercial rally
exactly.
type buying experience. Yeah,
It's like the boat show or the RV show or something like that.
but you bring the lounge, which is awesome
It
because it
shifts
makes
the
the whole
focus.
experience.
Yeah, it shifts the focus onto what we want is like what we started saying was, wouldn't it be cool if you come into the booth, we talk to you, you leave, somebody else comes to the booth, we talk to them, they leave. That's unilateral. But how do they meet each other? And that was where the Dusty Lizard came in, was like, okay, how do we make these kind of bilateral sort of like things where people are actually meeting each other, not just meeting us, and where the topic of conversation is the riding and the camping and not shopping and prices and discounts and that kind of shit.
So
And
Pete is
so
an evil genius because he literally got the antisocial me into that, talking to other people in the damn tents,
and
and I
that's
had a
good.
blast. But
Yeah, the
totally, like
lounge
it's
is
so
like,
comfortable.
you
Just
can't help. We set up the lounge so that you can't sit on those couches and help but talk to the people next to you,
yeah, I
right? And
tried to find a hiding spot. I really did, and you can't. You
yeah,
do it perfect. It's awesome, and
that's
it
great.
creates a
So
really good time because
people
I've made friends that I never would have made without
that's
without the
awesome.
lounge. So
I
it's a
love
great
hearing that.
experience.
And that's what we always encourage people to kind of step out of their comfort zones. If somebody's introverted, to step out of their comfort zone and have a chat. And if somebody showed up with a group of friends, that group of friends, and they don't need to meet people because they got their own friends there. But hey, like keep your eye out for the people that came in solo, and include them and invite them to go riding or grab them a beer or whatever. And we kind of set that tone. And hopefully by the end of the weekend, everybody's kind of got to meet everybody, or as best as we can do.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great experience. I took my son-in-law. You met Squatch, and he's never adventure rode, but we've been on dirt bikes forever um, together. And he came and he, was chatting with everybody. Had a great time. We did take the dirt bikes and go get crazy. In fact, going down a hill, really tired after we met you up on the trail. We kept going, and it was really rocky. And then the life flight people came up with their stretcher and said they carried someone out half mile up ahead of us. That was fun, thinking, God, what was it? Because we're going towards it. So like, what obstacle is it? What is? Apparently, she just tipped over and got hurt. But
Did you actually see her? We
we
ran
did
into.
not see her. No, I think we saw her before the wreck. But
Yeah, we saw they landed the helicopter at the trailhead and then took off again. So they kind of we were there. They kind of held us up and then landed the helicopter, and then it like literally touched down, was there for 2 minutes, and then took off again. I guess they figured there was a better loading spot. So
yeah, I think luckily she was okay. Just had a broken leg or something. But
yeah,
I mean, it's great. And you can take a bigger bike, and you have trails and stuff. So it's for all people. Even I mean, I'd take my significant other or whatever. It's just a great place. It is about riding, and there is great gear you can see, but the whole experience is awesome. So you've done well,
thanks.
and
Yeah,
I
what
look
we've
forward
noticed
to it.
is we're getting some of the same people showing up. So it's less of an event and more of a traveling community, and it's a lot of the same folks are coming. Like they're traveling a long way to be there. So we'll say, hey, next year if we do it in say Death Valley and Alpine Loop and White Salmon and Baja or something like that, like we'll see there's actually like the same crew. Like you can show up and see some of the same people you met 1,000 miles away at the last one, which is I like that part of it. They make an adventure out of getting there and out of getting back. They pick an interesting route in and an interesting route out, and then that's just the kind of the Dusty Lizard is the turnaround point. You know,
It is awesome seeing people in Utah one from all over,
yeah,
different states on their plates and stuff. So for the Dusty Lizard, you go to what, Mosko Moto. You can see the events coming up for say
yep,
next year, and
totally. And we sign up for our mailing list, and we're actually working on the schedule right now. So I think next year we're going to do 4 of them, and they'll be pretty much in the western states, and they'll start in the spring and run through the fall. And
sorry, Pete, you're gonna get sick of me. I might hit all four.
yeah, please do. Yeah, we had a couple people ask us about season passes last year to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Maybe
Put
one
that in
day
the
that's
mailing list. I want one.
I mean, right now this is just in its infancy, and I think we're. But what I like, I mean, what's fun for me is like on the last day of Dusty Lizard, when people are taking off, people are so stoked. Like the stoke level is so high. They're just like, when is the next one? That was awesome. Thank you. Like there's this vibe, this like glowy vibe on the last day. And that is where I'm like, okay, we're on to something here. Cause that shit doesn't happen when we just go set up our booth at your average motorcycle event. You know what I mean? Like it
No,
doesn't happen.
definitely.
And when I look at the industry as a whole right now, like you look at the IMS tour. I mean, many people might not know what the IMS tour is, but remember the Long Beach Motorcycle Show and the Denver Motorcycle Show, and there was this traveling circuit of motorcycle shows. It was owned by an event company, and it was called the International Motorcycle Shows, and it was sponsored by Progressive, and it was like a purely shopping event. Like it was like basically didn't matter if you're on cruisers or adventure bikes or sport bikes, and it was like booth after booth after booth, and it was like all the glitzy bullshit. And like
Hmm.
they went out of fucking business, man. They're
They
gone.
did.
Yeah, they're
I did
gone. They've
not
been
know
gone for
that.
10 years
Holy
now.
shit.
Yeah, and so that type of event is out, you know, and the type of event that seems to be in is the kind of regional riding events that were usually started by one or two buddies, and they're things like March Moto Madness or Death Valley Noobs, and these kind of Whale and Waynes, like these kind of small. They're not actually it's that small anymore. Some of these are getting
Right.
huge, and
Right.
those events are actually shining right now. That's where and so you have this one type of event that's sort of gone away, and this other type of event, which I personally find a lot more gratifying anyway. That's
Well,
kind
the
of shining.
commercial
I think.
aspect is probably what killed it, right? Because it was so commercially driven.
Yeah, it never, and it's funny because there's shows like that in Europe that do quite well, but for some reason, it just was always on the struggle bus. As long as I've been in the industry here in the States, it just never quite worked. And But what does seem to work really well with adventure riding and is these kind of regional riding gatherings. And I totally get that. Like, and that's why it's exciting for us to kind of do a version of that of our own. And it's fun for us to go to those events. And there's actually, and then you have these events like KTM or BMW or TourTech, which we don't go to, but is an
Yeah,
awesome
yeah.
event.
I know because it's right by the Unrally. I missed the Unrally because I had tickets to the Tour Tech. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. TourTech, those guys they consider us a kind of a competitor, so they don't invite us anymore, but we used to go back in the day.
They don't
But
invite you? All right, Tour Tech. Sorry, I ain't coming. You gotta invite
oh
Pete.
no, no,
If if you exclude Pete, I'm out too.
no, it's friendly. They're cool. It's cool.
No,
There's
they're
no,
cool.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
No,
the
we talk
same
about
time period. I wanted to go to both, but I just couldn't swing it.
but those events are sort of in the middle, and those are doing
Hmm.
well. Also, I think some
And
of those are doing well.
and Tour Tech, the one I went to, was fun too as well. It wasn't
Yeah,
quite
TourTech's a great
like
event.
Dusty Lizard. Dusty Lizard's like more when a band plays a uh, more intricate club rather than the
Yeah,
whole
very intimate.
stadium, right? So to me, the experience is more one on one with people. Whereas some of the bigger events, there's no way you can meet all the people. So
For sure. And Dusty Lizard TourTech is TourTech doing TourTech's thing, and Dusty Lizard is Mosko doing Mosko's thing, and they're different. And it is I think it is a very different experience. And and then the Unrally is just out in this whole other planet by itself, which again, not a Moscow event, but in terms of like different events and different flavors. But I think so. Anyway, for me, having seeing the our ability to start doing Dusty Lizards, that opportunity was created by the IMS tour folding, because that's what freed up the time and the capacity. It takes a lot to pull off these Dusty Lizards in a different state. It'd be much
yeah,
easier to do something here in our backyard, but when we have to travel with two trucks and two massive trailers and a bunch of staff to far away to a place where we don't really know, that's half the fun of it. Is we're learning the routes
it's
too.
an
We're seeing,
adventure for you too.
yeah, it's an adventure for us too. We're all in it together out there, and that I love that aspect of it. And so for us to kind of be able to do less convention center fluorescent light trade show booth and more, campfire, dusty lizard, riding, lounge kind of things is just also nice for us, just purely from a life on the road standpoint. You know,
Definitely. And one of the reasons that I was drawn to you, I mean, your gear is great, second to none, I say, but I'm biased, but I see you out doing the stuff that I do with luggage, and I have tested your luggage. I'd be like your worst nightmare as a torture tester. It holds up, but because it holds up because you actually go out and test and do the things that we do. So I
yeah,
mean, you're one of us. You just happen to make awesome gear. But there's a lot of companies that just make luggage to make their mortgage payment, right?
right.
And you have a passion for it and you use it and hey, this rips here when you fall down or something, and you address that because
Yeah,
you're out there. And
that's
that
we.
speaks volumes to me and many of the people that I ride with, because a lot of thought, time, and like you get it.
Yeah, we're a lot of times, I mean, and that's the great thing about selling direct is it doesn't take any time. Like if we put a product out there and people have problems with it, we hear about it like that. It doesn't have to filter through like dealers and salespeople and reps and get wholesalers and distributors. Like
Hey,
it's like
Pete,
boom,
this new
our
bag
start ringing
sucks.
the next day.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks. Great. Thanks.
and half the time, like we'll experience it ourselves and be like, oh shit, and then we're like, oh man, we gotta come up with an answer to this because the phone's gonna start ringing real soon. And like so, by the time somebody calls, we're like, oh yeah, yeah, sorry, we knew about that. We found
Sorry,
that.
we got a fix for that.
Yeah, here's the
Get it right
fix, or
out.
come in, or here's how we're going to take care of it for you. But like we take that really seriously, like testing and the line between us and the people and our sort of quote unquote customers is just very blurry. Like, in fact, and even I love, like, there's people in the kind of Moscow fold that help us at shows and events and stuff like that. And like,
Mhm.
what are they? Are they part of are they part of the team? No, not really. They got day jobs, but they're like, and then for us, we're out using the product on the BDR. So we're customers too. It's kind of confusing. It's just like an amoeba sort of moving along,
It's
but the,
good. Don't mess with it because it's working. I love it.
thanks. It's fun. I can't imagine doing business any other way. And we use the shit out of the product ourselves, and we try to break it. And 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 when people do have problems out in the field, we take that really seriously and take care of it fast, and not push back and put them through a big rigmarole and try to get them back on the road. Like when someone's out, especially like someone's out traveling across Africa or around the world and they have some issue with a piece of gear, like it's like drop everything and fix it,
And
for
that's
them,
amazing
so
because
that they can
when
keep
you're
moving.
on the road, especially, I tend to travel solo. I don't know if people can't stand me or I just like being solo, whatever. But like if you're in the middle of somewhere you don't know and you're having a problem, like the anxiety can get pretty big quickly, right? So I
Yeah.
appreciate that you
Well,
you guys take priority and you've been there so you understand what they're going through
and not
and do
just
what you
me,
can to get there.
the whole Moscow team, like
Yeah,
everybody rides. Like when you message in or you get on the phone with somebody on our CS department, like you're talking to somebody who actually rides and camps and probably just got back from a trip. Ask them,
right.
what I mean? And like so they know exactly what that feels like. And when you do consolidate your world down to that very small number of things, your luggage is a big part of that. I mean, it's sort of like your house, and so if you have a malfunction or something go wrong, and even with a lot of our stuff, like when we design it, we're like, okay, because there's always the possibility of things tearing or things breaking. And so
Mhm.
like we'll put in little things where it's like, well, if this does break, here's a little zip tie hole. And so you can reconnect it. Or, hey, if this does break, well, okay, the bag's not going to fall apart. It still performs its function. It still keeps
Thank
your
you
shit
for that.
safe
You
and
you
keeps it
think
dry.
in the redneck mechanic like myself. So thank you for giving us those options because
Yeah, like a lot of our stuff can be fixed at a hardware at a little small town Ace hardware store, or
I
in
did the
some.
Idaho BDR with the inner bag of one of their backcountry panniers. Yeah, just with a strap around the inner bag, and it kept everything dry and it held it. Everything.
Perfect. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, that's shit happens. And this is the most abusive sport. I mean, like it is so hard on gear.
yeah.
Like when you think about what our expectations for gear are, it's crazy. It's madness. It's like we expect to crash a fucking motorcycle on it and then pick up the motorcycle and keep
And keep
riding,
going
keep
with
going.
all of our
And then
stuff.
do it again. Like you might do that like 4 times in a day on a like multi-month or year-long trip. And it's like a 500-pound motorcycle and you got 100 pounds of shit and plus your body and everything else. And you're riding through like stuff that was made for dirt bikes,
That's my
And
everyday. That's my everyday. Picking up the
yeah,
bike, picking up, the luggage, moving on. And then you get tired and you drop and you wreck because you're tired.
totally. You think
But you
about
keep going.
what we're asking from our gear, not just the bikes, but the luggage and our apparel and our bodies for that matter, but
Yeah, the
our
body's
armor.
the
I
part
mean,
that you guys can't fix for me, but other than that, you got it covered, man.
we're asking a lot. And so you got to make stuff real tough, and that's why typical outdoor gear doesn't really hold up in this
Yeah,
space. Like even just the exposure to the elements, the thousands, the vibration, and not just the vibration,
the wind, the
bag against the bike,
elements.
stuff inside the bag vibrating against the inside of the bag,
Mhm.
stoves and tools and cook pots and stuff like
And
that
20 degrees to 100 degrees.
in a
I mean,
day between
there's a
one
lot of
desert.
things going on
There's a
that,
lot going on. And then the crashes are just on top of all that. And then as we're riding, bags are getting scraped along trees and branches and
yeah,
rock. And like sagebrush is just crazy. Like you'll be riding down double track and your bag is off the side of the track in the sagebrush and it hits every single piece of sagebrush for like 40 miles. You know what I mean? And so like it is a pretty wild thing. Like I can't think of any other activity that routinely puts luggage through this kind of abuse.
yeah.
And that has been a 10-year quest for us is like how to meet that challenge. And we're constantly learning and tweaking and improving.
Well, my hat's, I take it off, but I have no hair. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah.
Actually, it's your hat, Dusty Lizard.
It is Dusty Lizard. Sweet. It's a collector's item there.
Yeah, but I'm never been called gentle. I'm not gentle on things. I don't have the prettiest bike ever. Scars on the bike are, memories to me. But I tell you, I beat the hell out of the Moscow stuff, and it's still going. Thank God. So you've obviously put time, work, and thought into it, and it's the best luggage out there. Just saying.
Right on, man.
Also, it is. I mean, it does come at a price, but I've learned the game: buy nice, not twice. I had to learn
Yeah.
that the hard way.
It's not cheap. And our margins are not fat. It's
But
expensive
it's not
because of
crazy expensive, but you're not buying a Walmart sack to go through what we do.
and you're paying a very reasonable cost over what it actually costs to make the bag. That's the thing. It's not marked up 4 times or anything like that. Like because we don't have dealers, we don't have distributors. The lion's share of what you're spending on the product is going into the physical product itself, the materials, the construction, and you can tell the difference when you
Oh,
interact
you
with one
can
of our
tell.
bags, interact with another bag at a similar price point. That there's just a lot more is going into one than the other,
There definitely is.
and that's not magic. That's because we sell direct, and so we just have fewer steps in our supply chain to get the product from a factory into your hands, and so we can spend more making it.
And we appreciate that. The dealer doesn't need to make all the money off, but
Yeah,
you,
no offense to dealers, like they do their thing. This is our business model, you know, and we love our local dealers, and I'm not disrespecting anybody who chooses to sell through retail. And there's a
right.
lot to be said for the convenience of being able to go down to a local dealership and pick up a part or something like that, or try something on before you buy it. Like but you pay for that.
Speaking of trying on, is the mannequin done with the jacket yet?
You get that question a lot. You'd be amazed.
Well, you're out of the green one. I have fell in absolute love with this exotherm, right?
The ectotherm.
I
Yeah.
just started plugging it in because it's getting that cold. In love with it. But
Yeah.
you're out of that color in large, and I ordered the medium, and I think I ate too many cookies. I'm getting
It's
bigger.
been hit that. Yeah, that's something I'd wanted for years was basically a heated jacket that was just a normal jacket off the bike.
And
And
it
but it's
looks so
not,
good. Like that's my nice jacket. Okay, that tells you a lot about me. But that if I'm going somewhere nice, I wear that jacket.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
It's comfortable. It looks nice. You can go to a nice dinner in it, or you can sit
Yeah.
by a campfire in it.
And it's got good insulation. It's got Primaloft gold insulation. It's got a nice face fabric. It's got a DWR treatment. The cut is nice. Like anybody looking at it would never believe that it was an electric jacket that plugs into
Yeah,
a motorcycle. But unlike the kind of more fashion electric jackets that are for like skiing or for business commuting, those things don't get hot enough to work on a motorcycle. Like you plug them in, you can barely feel them. So to be able to run, high carbon fiber heat elements in a jacket that works on a motorcycle, and then also have it be like when you're off the bike, it looks like a nice Arc'teryx or Patagonia hoodie,
yeah,
or puffy. That was the goal. It was like, because we were on motorcycle trips and we're like, bring in our heated vest or our heated jacket, and then also a jacket to wear off the bike. And it was always like, God, you need my heated jacket. Do I not? And if you don't bring it, then you're going to need it.
right.
And then like, well, can't these just be one? Can't we just take this nice insulated outdoor puffy and then put the carbon fiber heating elements in it? And we did that. And
It's
that's turned out to be
amazing.
a surprise hit. I'm glad
Please,
you're happy
please
with it.
keep making that. Please keep making that.
I
Usually,
think
when
we're
I
going to
find
release
something
it
that I
this year.
love, the company then discontinues it 2 years
Oh
later or
no.
something. But I love it. And you surprised me because I was like, why can't we just use a battery bank so that when I'm at camp, I can use it? And you have a solution for that, right?
Yeah,
You
we do the
can use that
anti-gravity
off the
batteries.
bike.
Anti-gravity batteries work great, and that's nice because a lot of people are packing those anyway, because they work as they're using them as jump starters. They make it
Yeah.
easy to recharge your phone. And then we're also experimenting with like different, like we have some ideas that we're messing around with for like being able to modulate the power, so you can turn, because if you don't need the same hit of power on the heating elements when you're not actually riding. And so like, wouldn't it be cool if you could, like on a freezing night where you're like, shit, I'm in a 20-degree bag and it's like 10 degrees out there. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could put on your heated jacket, but then have it modulate? So like you can turn down the heat and then have it pulse. So instead of exhausting the battery in an hour and a half, it lasts for like 6 hours. So you wake up cold at 1 o'clock in the morning, take your jacket, wrap it around your feet, put it around your body or whatever, and then put it on this lower
On the
pulse setting.
lower.
Stretches out that battery length and takes you all the way through morning.
And
Like, so
possibly you can still jump your bike in the morning because when it gets cold, some of our bikes don't like to
yeah.
start in the morning.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, I
maybe
love that.
it's all just depends on how big of a battery it is, but
So
I don't
would
know.
that
That's
be a
I mean,
would that be a special battery you would be doing, or would you be changing the jacket? Like,
it could be. We're looking into both those things right now, but certainly the main thing that would make that possible is the controller that's on the jacket. So, we're just toying around with a lot of stuff like that right now. But then you start getting into like this really interesting garment that's like truly specific for adventure riding. It has the ability to, save you on a cold night in your sleeping bag in your tent, which is something just not many other people have to contend with. and
No,
then you can also plug it directly into the motorcycle and get across a snowy pass, or suddenly like when you're on a trip and this unexpected weather system comes in and you're like, oh shit, and you're like, oh right, I have my ectotherm. Sweet. It just changes the whole experience of riding in crappy weather.
changes the game, and it's actually my everyday coat now. But
Yeah.
one last shameless plug. This year, I finally got what I had been chasing forever. Got some basilisk gear. Got the
Yeah.
jacket. Finally got the pants and the belt. And it wasn't but maybe the second day on an adventure when I took off with that. I was in the worst rain. In fact, the road was washed out. I had to get a hotel because you could not pass. Well, I thought about it, but you should not pass.
Yeah.
But I was dry as a bone, except for the one vent that I forgot to zip up, but that's user air. But you could go almost swimming in that stuff. I swear by it.
That's a great endorsement. Well, thanks for sharing that story.
And I will have a video coming out with that actually because I got some of that on film. And
Awesome.
I was like,
Basilisk.
I'm a little biased. I like Moscow. Hope this is good. Oh man, I tested that. Well, the weather tested it. I didn't even plan on that, but so great gear, comfortable. It's good looking. The only thing I get made fun of when I wear from Moscow, they call me the Oompa Loompa.
The Oompa Loompa.
When I wear the hood and the it's not the tobacco, it's the orange long johns.
Oh yeah,
I
gotcha.
love those things because
Oh
they're
yeah,
so
it's great. The
convenient.
Strata. Yeah, our long underwear kit is so great. And hey man, as long
So
as you're warm, dry Oompa Loompa.
yes, but my son-in-law the whole time we were at Desert Dusty Lizard was like, "Come on, man, just go out into the lounge, run out there and run around in your Oompa Loompa suit." I'm like, I'll puke or I would do it, but I mean, I love it, and it's all thought out, good gear, does what it's going to say or says it does. So, and I
Yep.
appreciate you working with me. Uh, I used your gear. I've told you this, but I used your gear on a borrowed bike. Man, it's 5, 6, 7 years ago now. And that was from my buddy I was telling you about the big company. I was like, and I broke the bag because I hit a tree. I was like, I could never. I was so scared. I can't afford to replace it because I didn't realize good gear you pay for it, and it's worth it. But so I told him, I'm going to do this YouTube. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to try and get sponsored by Mosko. And he's like, go Cody, do YouTube, go do podcasts, follow your dreams. That day, he's like, Cody, Mosko ain't going to talk to you basically. And I was like, and this is my buddy that's cheering me on. So I was like, screw that. I'm going to. Anyway, I went on a mission and I've tried as much of your gear as I can. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's,
Awesome, man. Well, that's what we want to hear, and we put a lot of thought into it, a lot of work, and we collect a lot of feedback, and we act on the feedback. Um, and it's a just a never ending work in progress. And we started with bags, and as you know, we're for 5 years into apparel now, and we take the apparel real seriously, and we're having a lot of fun with that too. And we're starting to work on our own body armor now as well. So
yeah, I was going to
we're
ask you anything new coming up.
well, the body armor is we have, of course, there's lots of new on bags and um, on apparel both, and then the body armor is kind of what I consider the third leg on this stool, because a lot of our apparel does not have integrated body armor. Although we're
Mm-hmm.
starting to introduce some styles with integrated body armor next year, but it and so it's a pretty natural transition. If people are used to buying a jacket that has both armor and a jacket, and then we're saying yes, separate those two, but we don't offer armor. It's a little weird. And for us to
Yeah,
be able to design right now, we're designing these garments around other people's armor, and we have to sort of accommodate all these different sizes and shapes of armor. And if we could just design around our own armor, then we could have like really we could dial in our fit and make there's a lot of things we can do when we have our own armor that are opens a lot of doors for us design wise. And
that's
so,
exciting.
yeah, that's an important
Exciting for you, exciting for the end user. I love to hear that.
because separate armor right now is really designed for like motocross and trail riding. You put it on for a
Yeah,
couple hours and that's it. And we're living in it.
yeah.
And so that kind of is a different use case. And it's just not something that armor manufacturers are contemplating right now.
That's the one thing on Throttled Adventures with Chappie that I've noticed. People that come from the road, the first dirt bike, don't really get the concept. I'm a dirt biker to the road. So
Yeah.
we always have separate, knee pads, elbow pads. The armor is separate from the garment. but people coming from the road look at us like, why would you do that? Like,
Yeah, they don't
so
get it.
you probably deal with that a lot. And I love that you're coming up with your own solution because, I mean, the force field looks awesome, but it's a little thicker than
Yeah,
I would love. But I love that
yeah,
you're
big
coming
heavy
up with a
piece.
solution.
It's heavy. It's very protective, but it's big and heavy. I mean, yeah. I think I like for me, I haven't ridden with integrated armor now for years. I mean, I'm a full convert, but I understand that there's people who the separate armor. If you're in a pretty consistent climates, you're not having, especially on the warm end, and especially for like commuters and stuff like that. They want to be able to pull on their jacket. It's simple. But when you get into like crossing seasons and temperature zones and being, essentially, I like to be able to ride without a jacket when I'm off road because the
Yeah.
abrasions,
Yeah.
the need for abrasion protection off road is much lower because you're on a loose surface. It's not the same as pavement, and the danger of impact is much higher because you're more likely to crash. And so
And
with
find a rock.
yeah, and you're working harder. You're moving athletically. I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
trail riders don't wear jackets with integrated armor because if they couldn't take their jacket off, they'd just die of
Yeah.
heat exhaustion.
They'd melt away. I'm melting.
Yeah. So we ride off road. We wear just a jersey over our armor. It feels great, just the airflow, and you can operate athletically, and you don't have that big buildup of heat inside of a jacket. So the freedom to kind of take your jacket off road is a big thing. And as people start riding more off road, and especially as they start venturing into more challenging terrain, rocks and sand, they start to feel that need, and that's where the separate armor kicks in. But I get that for people that do mostly pavement and are riding in a little bit more predictable climates that are cooler, the integrated armor is convenient, and we're going to start to introduce some garments that have the option to do both. Because that was the problem before: is you'd buy a jacket that was designed for integrated armor, you take the armor out, but then you have this big floppy mesh liner inside of it.
Yeah.
And so our jackets are all shells; they don't have that liner. Which is nice. It's like a ski shell or a mountaineering shell.
Yeah. Well, like through hikers and backpackers and stuff, they get the layering mountaineers, but it's a layering thing. And that's what I found with you guys, that you're accommodating that
Yeah,
layering system.
you separate, instead of trying to combine too many things in a single garment. You start to separate them out into separate garments, and that way you can pick and choose from your kit, to match the temperature and to match the climate. And I think that, and plus you can pick the armor you want that matches. Like, you can wear this type of armor for this trip and this armor for that trip, and you can you start to get into, like, it's not a one size fits all solution. And
I have a request. After your story about the military night, you should get some integrated Kevlar or something.
yeah,
I'm
maybe.
just kidding. I'm kidding. I was just trying to throw
Fortunately,
you off there.
fortunately, they weren't after us. So,
No, I love it. Next year at Dusty Lizard, maybe, or for the new stuff.
yeah, next year. Well, yeah, I think we'll start. I think a lot of the new stuff's coming out in around spring of next year. Between now and spring of next year, we'll have new stuff being introduced. So I think we'll have our first integrated armor jacket and pant kit out around January, and then we'll have, we have other stuff in the pipeline right now that'll be kind of
Perfect.
coming
So the
out.
best way to keep up with you is obviously moskomoto.com, correct? Then you've
Yeah.
got, what's your Instagram?
Well, we've got obviously Mosko Moto is the main Instagram, and then I'm Mosko Pete. So we have kind of two. I have my own Instagram that I put, my own work into, and then of course we have our
Hmm.
business Instagram, which is like kind of a separate animal. And
Also
so
YouTube, correct?
yeah,
Right?
yeah, YouTube. We do stuff on YouTube. A lot of what we put on YouTube is like product videos that end up on the website and stuff like that. But we make a lot of content and stuff. I mean, we like making videos, and
Yeah,
that's
on
part.
days where I'm stuck at work or can't get, or it's raining, it's snowing, I can't get out on an adventure, I love to just kind of follow along, see what you're doing. It kind of gives me the adventure for a little
Oh,
bit, keeps the dream alive.
well, that's it. MoskoMoto.com. You can sign up for our email list at Mosko Moto on Instagram. And then if you want to follow me personally, that's at Mosko Pete.
Well, thank you for joining me again. I mean, it's my
Thanks,
honor,
Cody.
but I wish you the best. I'll try and stay in touch. Have great adventures, man. And if you do come back to Moab, shoot me a text.
Will do. It's a pleasure to be on, and thanks for having me back.
Thank you. Have a
Bye,
great
everybody.
weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Go check out Mosko Moto. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock.
Nice.
Well, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, for sure. That's a wrap.